Yeah. There's an ex-boyfriend of mine. I was so convinced he was my happily ever after. I am telling you, I don't know what it was about him or our situation. Perhaps it was how we met, when we met, who we met through, or maybe even the circumstances in our lives at the time. But I was so convinced this was my person. You could not tell me anything. I had invested in this idea. I was so into it that everything that followed was just confirmation. Nana, it was a sign this is your person. We dated many years ago. We broke up. And then many years later, we find our way back to one another. And I'm like, what love story could be any more perfect than this? This is my guy. I even remember what I wore the first time him and I went on our date, the second time round. And I remember on that particular date, that first date, I told him I've made the decision that I do not want to have sex with anybody until I am married. Like, I just don't want to go back down that road again. It was something I was clear from the very beginning. I'm not hiding this from anybody, and neither should you. Say it so that they know and everybody can make their decisions accordingly. And so I tell him this, and he seems to understand it. And I'm just feeling so positive. Everything is going well. The text messages, you know, those initial stages, just a lot of text messages, phone calls, spending almost every weekend together, exchanging gifts. I mean, we were there. And then a couple of weeks into the relationship, the pressure to have sex became a thing. And initially, it was very subtle. It was not that aggressive, in your face. It was initiating it. Initiating getting physically intimate. And initially, I was very firm, very assertive. Like, nah, I told you that I'm not going down that road. Let's not do any of this. Let's just keep it above board. And okay, he kind of let that go. But as time progressed, he got a lot more bold. Manipulative. He started to subtly threaten to break it off with me without actually saying, if you don't do this, I'm going to leave you. No, it was about his previous relationships, how physical intimacy and connection is his love language. He didn't want to go through this and da-da-da-da-da. And of course, expressing how he feels as he should. But then again, he became, the way he communicated became a lot more manipulative. Now it's not just about past relationships. Now it's, I'm going to make you feel what your decision is doing to me. So now you're telling me that you're having to masturbate. I'm at your place and you're telling me you were in the bathroom for long because you had to masturbate. It's now in my face loud. And you would think that after that, I would have left. But no, I didn't. I made the decision to stay. I was still so invested in this idea, and I had convinced myself that somehow if I could convince him of the benefits of waiting and not being physically engaged until marriage, if I could convince him of the benefits of just doing this the right way, the more godly way, he would see it and he would eventually agree. He would get on the same page. But he didn't. That's not what happened at all. I ended up sleeping with him. I made the decision to have sex with him. I'll be very honest with you. I was the first person to break my own heart. After sleeping together, I was devastated, absolutely devastated. I knew that I should not have done it. I knew that I had crossed a line, and this was just not it. This was not what I had planned. This was not what I wanted. He never physically forced me. Let me be clear. I had made the decision to do it. But I knew the moment I had done it that it was just this pain from deep, deep, deep inside. I knew I had just messed up. Fast forward a couple of months later, and he left me. And I really struggled with that. I struggled with how he could leave me. I could not reconcile how it could end just like this. Yes, I know we had other issues as well, but how could I make such a deep sacrifice? How could I take a step away from God, take a step towards him, and be so rejected? It was heartbreaking. I went through it. You know, the motions of it, the struggling to eat, the struggling to sleep, just having no peace, repeating, playing this whole thing over and over and over in your mind. Like, what didn't I do? What did I say? What didn't I say? How could it end this way? I had so many questions like, why? Why did he leave? What was it? What? Did he love me? I mean, I know he said he loved me, and in that moment I believed it, but did he love me? No, but he had to have loved me because not everything was bad, and I felt he did. When he looked at me, it looked as if he did. He had to have loved me. I mean, then one day we go to church. My sister and I go to church, and as soon as we get there, the pastor tells the congregation, today's message is going to flog your flesh. In other words, today's message is not going to be easy to hear, but you have to hear it. And then he proceeded to tell us that he was going to be telling us how to tell if a man does not love you. And I immediately sat up. I was like, this message is for me. Lord, you know I've been needing to hear this. I was attention. And then he began to list the things, how to know if a guy does not love you, this. And I'm going down this checklist. And the more he's speaking, it's just sounding like a big no. This man does not love me. And the biggest point he made was that if somebody does not respect your values and your boundaries, they do not love you. I'll say it again. If somebody does not respect your boundaries and your values, that person does not love you. And even still, I sat there trying to excuse everything. I sat there trying to justify and make sense of it. Like, no, he doesn't know our situation. He doesn't know how we met. He doesn't know all we went through when we dated the first time and how we came back. He just doesn't know. And so, of course, after service, I'm one of those who stay behind so that I can get prayer I need it. I need the clarity. I don't tell the pastor what it is I need prayer about, but it's just a general, I need peace. I don't tell him about the relationship. No, it's just, I need peace. And so he prays for me. And of course, having stayed late after church and then still having to order an Uber, I was delayed. And this is key information because all of these details led to this moment. I'm in the Uber with my sister on the way back home, and we're talking about the sermon, and we're like, what did we just hear? What was all of that about? So imagine I'm sitting to the right, she's on the left, so I'm behind the driver, and I'm looking at my sister having the conversation about the sermon. And I get this deep feeling, this nudge that just tells me, look out your window. And I don't even hesitate. I don't question it. I don't anything. I look right out my window, and there he is in his car with another woman. And I could tell by the body language. I could tell by the way she looked, because he absolutely has a type. I could just tell that these two were involved. There was no denying it. There was no. It was clear these two were absolutely having something. And that moment was the moment I absolutely, without a doubt, 100% knew this man did not love me. Yes, we had broken up. But it was just a few months ago that he had told me he loved me. And it was not as though we had stopped speaking. Even after the breakup, we were still speaking. There was still this hope being held onto. And I don't know about everybody else and how they move, but I struggle to wrap my mind around how you can love somebody or claim to love somebody and so quickly move on from that person. And maybe that's just a me thing. He had moved on. He had absolutely moved on. I was not a factor. I was not a thing. He was over it. He was far beyond it. He was gone. Now, before I get into the key that unlocked my healing, I want to touch on 3 points in hopes that these 3 things will be a lesson to everybody else from my experience. Number 1, relationships are indeed about compromise, but there are certain compromises you should never make. There are certain things you should never toy with. Your values and your faith. Do not toy with it. Do not mess with it. You will end up compromising in a way that will have you undone until you don't even know who you are. And the hardest pill to swallow is that that very person would never do the same, nor should he have to. Number 2, don't be desperate. There's something about desperation that attracts rejection. And it gives room for opportunity for people to mishandle you. I don't know what it is about desperation, but desperation and rejection go hand in hand. The two are one. Do not be desperate. And number 3, pay attention to their behavior. It reveals a lot more than what they say. And I am so guilty of this. I am so guilty of spending more time listening to what they're saying and not enough time paying attention to how they're acting. Because how somebody behaves is 100% an indication of what they are feeling, how they truly feel about you. They can be saying one thing and their heart is saying something else. Their behavior is saying something completely different. It's like faith. Someone can say all the right things that sound like faith, but their behavior tells you they just don't believe. The key that unlocked my healing was silence. I got to the point where I stopped accepting his phone calls, I stopped responding to his text messages, and I stopped speaking life into the situation. I stopped. We sometimes hurt our own feelings by wanting to open or leave that communication channel open for the sake or in the name of closure or just being friends. And he ends up saying something that'll hurt. You end up saying something you'll regret. And it's just, I learned there is so much power in silence. Sometimes the message is in no message at all. And I'll admit, initially, the silence, just not responding to him, ignoring him, felt good. It was that, now you know what it feels like to be treated as though you do not matter. But as I progressed in that healing journey, I realized it's not actually about him. It's about me. It's about my healing. It's about me moving forward. The silence became a protective hedge. It was giving room to restoration and putting up boundaries. Boundaries. Sometimes we're so afraid to do these things because we don't want to be considered petty or childish or weak. And so we allow all this foolishness. Let me tell you, there is nothing petty or weak about putting boundaries in place. It takes maturity, self-love, and discipline to do what is right for you. Now, I want to say this to the person who is going through a breakup. You are going to be okay. You are going to be okay. You are. It may not feel like it in this moment, but you are going to be okay. You will come out of this on the other side. You will. Life will go on. It will. You will learn, grow, and heal, and be better equipped for the person and the relationship that is for you. Believe it. It is true.